Hey guys, what's going on? It's Brittany here, back with another video to help you guys live a happy, healthy, awesome life in a wheelchair. And today I'm gonna take you guys through what I call the 4 R's of bladder health. I did a video last year, one of my first videos, all about how I cured my chronic UTIs. And I am going to go into a lot more depth now about how to have a healthy bladder when you're paralyzed. There's a lot that goes into it, and it took me many years to come up with these 4 R's. Lots of trial and error, lots of different research, and just figuring things out. Things that my doctor definitely didn't tell me. These weren't things that I went to my family doctor and found out. They weren't things that I found out at a urologist. They were all things that I learned through research on my own, reading books, going to naturopaths, talking to herbalists, and just figuring out that I am the master of my own health and no doctor out there is an expert. They just have general knowledge that they can impart to you, but they really don't know it all. So it was up to me to figure out how to get my bladder health back. I had chronic UTIs for years and years after my accident. I had at least I would say 10 UTIs a year, and it was awful. I had to go to the lab to take urine samples. I was sick. I was always worried if I was leaving for holidays or anything like that, that I was gonna get an infection and not be able to get antibiotics. It just ruined my life. So I wanted to fix my bladder, and that's what I did. Initially when I cured my UTIs, I'll put a link to my other video. It was basically just D-mannose and garlic, and you can go watch the video all about that whole process that I went through to heal my bladder. But today I'm gonna go through basically like the general health of your bladder and what things are important in order to maintain the health of your bladder and to prevent infections and to just keep your bladder happy. All of the information that I'm gonna talk about today is in this natural bladder care guide that I made. It's 16 pages, and it talks all about the different substances and natural herbs and stuff like that that I'm gonna mention today. It gives links to research if you're interested, and then there's a chart in there that allows you guys to sort of pick and choose which things work for the different R's and all of that. I'll put a screenshot of this while I'm talking in the video so that you can see it better up close. But you guys can download this. I'll put a link to it in the description below, and it's just free for you guys to have because I wanted you guys to be able to have all the information. So go download that if you want. Okay, so let's get started talking about the 4 R's of bladder health. But before we do that, I just want to say, like, what is a healthy bladder? A healthy bladder is one that's not easily infected by bacteria. It's one that can expand and contract. The muscle is actually healthy. The cells are nice and close together, and it's basically just a happy camper. It's not inflamed, it's not irritated, it's not any of those things. The muscle is nice and healthy, it moves well, it's nice and flexible, and it resists infection easily. So that's a healthy bladder. And in order to do that, we first have to remove things that are irritating the bladder. So if you got up every single day from the couch and you were able-bodied and you hit your shin on the coffee table, and you didn't move the coffee table and you just kept hitting your shin every single day, it's pretty hard for the body to be robust and heal that spot if you just keep whacking it. And that's what irritating foods for the bladder do. They just keep assaulting the bladder with things that it does not like. Everybody's different. If I eat too many bell peppers, that irritates my bladder. And for years I had bladder urgency, like higher bladder frequency than I have now. And I traced it down to me eating like 3 bell peppers a day because I really like them. And it was just something that my bladder didn't like. They were like, please don't eat those bell peppers a million times a day. So it's kind of unique for everybody, but you can start with the common culprits, which are caffeine, citrus fruits, acidic foods, alcohol, chocolate, spicy foods, carbonated drinks, tomato-based products, and sugar. So those are like basically the most common ones. If you look up bladder irritants, there's lots of information on it because cystitis, which is like inflammation of the bladder, there's many lists for things for people with chronic cystitis. So you can look that up if you want more detailed lists, but in the guide, I have just the basic ones that you can start with eliminating so that you can at least see if some of those things make a difference for improving your bladder health. So the first one, just remove things that are irritating the bladder, stop assaulting it so that it can calm down and it can heal. So that's number 1. That's the first R. And then the second R is repairing the bladder. So once we've removed the foods that are irritating it, it can take time to, it can actually heal. And our bladder, especially after a spinal cord injury, it gets infected easily because we're not used to having bacteria in our bladder. People that are able-bodied and they're, voiding on their own, typically your bladder is a sterile environment. And when we introduce bacteria into it, they infect the bladder easily because the bladder tissue isn't used to that. They're just like, whoa, what the heck? I'm not used to having to build an arsenal against bacteria. They might have some friendly flora in there, but there generally isn't a whole bunch of bacteria in there. And the goal when you're paralyzed is to get to something called a colonized bladder. Generally, there's some bacteria in there because you're catheterizing, and it's pretty happy. Like, it's like, I don't care that the bacteria is here because my cells are nice and healthy. I've built sort of a robust barrier. They're not going to infect my tissue, and the bacteria are happy to live in there for as long as you'll let them. It's a warm environment, but they're not infecting your tissue because your tissue is it's like a stronghold, and they just kind of are visitors there, and that's it. So that's a colonized bladder, and that's sort of the goal after you're paralyzed, is to get to that where you can have bacteria, but it's not infecting the tissue. And in order to do that, you have to make sure your bladder tissue is repaired. So what's going to repair your bladder tissue? There's a couple of things that are my favorites. These things are things that relax, they calm, they soothe bladder tissue. And a couple of them that I use often are corn silk and marshmallow root. So both of these things you can buy in like a tincture, which is like the herbs basically dissolved in alcohol over a long period of time, and then put in it's like a high concentration. Or you can get it in a tea. You can just get like loose corn silk tea, and then you can drink it that way. You can get marshmallow root tea. So I would either take it in a tea or a tincture and just do it that way. A tincture sometimes is easier to carry around. I really like teas because you're actually hydrating yourself while you're taking the medicine. They're just not as convenient because sometimes you have to boil them to be like maximum effectiveness. So a lot of teas you can just sort of steep, which means like boiling hot or pouring hot water over them and letting them sit for 5 minutes. But a lot of the medicinal teas you actually have to boil in a pot for like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and then sometimes let sit for a long time. So it's up to you. The marshmallow tea, I've always just, if I buy the tea, I just buy it from Amazon. I'll put links to all this stuff in the description below. And then I just use it as a regular tea, and it seems to work fine. And then the corn silk, I've never bought it in a tea. I've always just taken it in a tincture, and I only just take it occasionally if I do have a UTI or symptoms like I'm getting a UTI. Then I like to take something to soothe my bladder to help it repair itself. Okay, so that's number 2. And then number 3 is reinforce. And reinforce, when I say reinforce, I mean mounting a good defense against bacteria. So you're gonna help your immune system. You're gonna reinforce your defenses in your bladder and your immune system so that it can eradicate the bacteria if there's any in there, and it can just get rid of it, right? So the things that I like to do is I like to boost my immune system. So if I'm reinforcing, generally these are things that I would be doing if I have an active UTI. I would be reinforcing my immune system and reinforcing my defenses in my bladder with natural antibiotics. When I was curing my UTIs, this reinforce step I did more often. So like I did it prophylactically. So I took the natural antibiotics all the time for about a year. So I think I took it even for longer than that. It might have even been 2 years, because my bladder was so inflamed that it just needed that long of a time to heal. So I bolstered my defenses so that my bladder tissue could heal. And then I slowly tapered off of these reinforced things that I'm going to talk about, the natural antibiotics, so that my bladder could then build up its own defenses. So the things that are good for your immune system, if you have an active UTI, vitamin C, that's always good for your immune system. Zinc is an immune system mineral, so that's good to take. Echinacea, that's a really good immune system herb. And then reishi mushrooms are another one that I really like. So these are things that you can take to help your immune system fight the infection better. And then natural antibiotics, I'm just going to talk about a couple of my favorites because there's a lot of them, and I list a whole bunch of them in here. But the most the most well-researched and I think the most effective ones are, for me, garlic. I used garlic to cure my chronic UTIs. Garlic is well-researched and very evidence-based in terms of like killing bacteria. It doesn't have a lot of human studies in which, you know, it's for bladder infections, but it does have a lot of studies that just see whether garlic itself can kill bacteria, and it does. It kills lots of bacteria. So it's not like this isn't evidence-based, and I've done it, my friends have done it. So the way I take garlic is I usually eat 3 cloves every 3 hours when I first have the infection, and I just cut it up into little tiny bite-sized pieces, and then you have to let it sit for 10 minutes so that the antibiotic component can develop in it. And then you swallow it. I just swallow the chunks. I put them under my tongue and then drink some water and then swallow it with the water. I don't chew them. Some people have tried that. It's nasty. Don't try chewing it. So garlic is the one that I use the most and that I feel is the most effective. The other ones that are really good are golden seal and uva ursi. These two are ones that you would probably hear if you went to like a naturopathic doctor for a natural antibiotic. These are two sort of big ones. And I use these in tincture form. So you can buy these from Amazon or other health food stores online. I'll put a link to where I get mine. I think you can get this one on Amazon, but if not, I'll put the link to where you can purchase it. St. Francis Uva Ursi. This one is Uva Ursi, and it's from St. Francis Herb Farm, just one of the Canadian companies that I use, and Golden Seal as well. So I have these two antibiotics. If I want, when I have a bladder infection, I always try garlic and either of these antibiotics first before I go to the doctor and get pharmaceutical antibiotics, because they are just nicer for your gut bacteria. They don't tend to wipe out everything when you use them, and generally they work. I tend to take pharmaceutical antibiotics like once every couple of years. And I will take these in between time if I get symptoms of a UTI. So those are 3 of my favorite natural antibiotics, and that is the reinforce step for healthy bladder. Okay, so the last one then is repel, is the step of repelling. And this is the one that you're gonna do typically all the time, because you want to repel bacteria. We only want to reinforce if the bacteria get through and we end up getting an infection. But most of the time we want to be repelling the bacteria where it can't even, infect our tissue, and it's not even getting close to our bladder. So that is the step that we're going to concentrate on the most for preventative. The things that I like to do in this step are take probiotics, because probiotics are important for maintaining the flora in your genital area. So that flora between your anus and your urethra is really important, because the more healthy bacteria you have in there, the more competition the bad bacteria have for making it to your urethra, and just the more in check it keeps it. It's just a less hospitable environment for bad bacteria if you keep that healthy. So taking probiotics, I'm terrible at taking a probiotic supplement, so I would rather eat probiotic foods like yogurt and kefir and kombucha, things like that. But if you are good at taking a probiotic supplement, you can do that. The lactobacillus strains are more beneficial, especially for women in that area. I don't know for men, so I'm not even gonna suggest a strain. You can go talk to your doctor about that, or do some research about what probiotics are best for males in terms of keeping a healthy flora in that area. But for women, it's definitely the lactobacillus. So you can find a women's probiotic that can probably help. You can even get like vaginal suppository probiotics that you can use if you want to. So take probiotics. Number 2 in the repel thing is maintaining a favorable pH, because if your urine is a favorable pH inside your bladder, then the bacteria don't grow as much. So the bacteria like a real neutral pH. So if you keep it on the acidic side by either taking lots of vitamin C or cranberry supplements, things like that like tend to acidify the urine, then the bacteria don't grow as well. Or you can go on the alkaline side. So if you eat lots of green vegetables, then your urine will go onto the basic side and the pH will get higher, and bacteria don't grow as well in that either. a note on that for the pH, if you are taking the natural antibiotic Uva Ursi or Golden Seal, these antibiotics work better if your urine is more alkaline, so if your pH is higher. So eating lots of green vegetables and actually avoiding those things that acidify your urine, like vitamin C and cranberry, are beneficial when you are taking the antibiotics. But if you prefer to keep your urine on the acidic side the rest of the time, then just take, your regular vitamin C and your cranberry and stuff like that. I have read in a couple of different things that it's harder to acidify the urine than it is to alkalize the urine. So I prefer to alkalize the urine, and my urine tissue or my urinary tract seems to prefer an alkaline environment. It just is less spastic that way. So I tend to try and eat more green vegetables and things like that alkalize my urine than I do try to acidify it. Although I do take vitamin C in the morning and cranberry supplements. So generally my urine is more acidic in the morning and then more alkaline throughout the day. So it's up to you what you want to do, but maintaining a favorable pH so that bacteria don't grow is just a really good strategy for repelling bacteria. Okay, and then 3 is taking anti-adhesive helpers. Cranberry is one of them. And these anti-adhesive helpers are things that make your bladder tissue actually harder for bacteria to adhere to. So it makes it harder for them to infect. They do this in a number of different ways, but D-mannose is one. You guys have probably heard about that before. If you've been in a wheelchair for a long time, lots of people take D-mannose. Cranberry, D-mannose, and then blueberry is another type of thing that they all do basically the same thing, is they repel bacteria in your bladder. So that is another good step in the repel strategy. And then the last one is just flushing your bladder. So there's some herbs that are diuretics that will help get rid of extra fluid in your body that you don't need. Sometimes we hold on to extra fluid in our body that we really don't need, especially when we're sitting and we get edema in our feet. So one of the ones I really like to use for this one is dandelion. Another one is nettle. Dandelion is really great because it helps maintain your potassium levels, because a lot of diuretics, they deplete your electrolytes, and dandelion actually is high in potassium, so it maintains your potassium levels and doesn't deplete your electrolytes, even though it still flushes your excess fluid. So I like to use those. I like to use that one. And then just drink a lot of water. That's the last thing for repel. Just drink a lot of water. I like to pee often and drink a lot of water because then the bacteria can't multiply while they're sitting in the bladder. I heard from a urologist once that, and I mentioned this in another video, that bacteria take a couple hours to multiply. So if you're flushing your bladder, peeing, or catheterizing every 2 to 3 hours, then the bacteria just can't multiply and become more infectious. So those are my 4 R's to bladder health. I use them all the time in order to keep my bladder healthy, and it seems to work for me. I don't get as many infections as I used to, and I can often go 6-8 months without any signs of a UTI, and if I do get one, then I rely on these natural things to get rid of it most of the time. So one of the things that I love to do, and that's really helpful when I'm thinking about these things, because you want to take these things in combination if you have a UTI. And in here I show how to use the chart that I provide that shows all of the different actions or effective sort of things for all of these different substances, is take ones that complement each other. And one of the ways I like to do that is to buy things that are already together. So a couple of the examples that I have are this UTI Clear by St. Francis Herb Farm. It's a combination of things that help the immune system, soothe the bladder, kill bacteria, and they put it all in one thing for you, so you don't have to go out and get them separately. Another one that I just found is this bladder and yeast infection by Bell, and it has a really good combination of things too. It's got D-mannose, it's got the Golden Seal, it's got other things that are also mentioned in my bladder care guide that I didn't mention in the video, but it's got a good combination of things that help to keep your bladder healthy, and that's for an active infection. And then they also have a tea that's a combination of things to help with, they call it bladder control, but it's basically to soothe your bladder so that you can hold more volume and it just becomes more healthy. So getting teas that are mixtures of things that help to heal my bladder and help keep it healthy are one of my favorite ways to consume the things so that I don't have to do it separately. I have a local herbalist that I use often that will make me mixtures of teas, so I'll put her information in the link below in case you're local to the Alberta, in case you're local to Edmonton or Alberta, then you can contact her and she can make you a UTI support tea. So those are things that I do to keep my bladder healthy and to be able to manage my neurogenic bladder without always running to the doctor, because it's so exhausting to have to go to the doctor all the time. And they frankly don't know as much as I do anymore. I've done so much research, and most of the time I just end up arguing with them because they don't believe any of the things I'm saying. So it's up to you if you want to try any of this stuff. And if you want to download the guide that I made, I hope you find it helpful, because it's taken me lots of years of research, trial and error, and just practice to get good at this stuff. So I hope this video is helpful to you guys. If you use any of these things or you have any other advice for natural bladder care or things that you do to prevent UTIs and keep your bladder healthy, please put them in the comments below, because that's such a wealth of information for other people. And if I'm missing something, I love to learn more stuff. So please put it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you back here on another video next week. Bye guys. Mwah.